Barry Hill, Morgan Henley, and I put together this PowerPoint about the unethical behaviors of educators. And there were 3 hot topics that we did lit reviews on. And those 3 hot topics are inappropriate sexual behavior with students, social networking with students, and cheating of educators on our standardized assessments. And of course, you guys know that any of these behaviors will result in punishment, scrutiny, sanctions from the school district, State Department, and there are legal ramifications as well. One of the statistics that I found was that 10% of our students, when they graduate high school, have had some type of sexual encounter with a school staff member. Now, that may or may not be an educator. It may be, some other staff member, but it doesn't matter. 1% is too many. And then, of course, studies show that only 10% actually report that sexual abuse. And if you'll think about it, we're figures of authority, and they're taught not to, go against the figure of authority. So it only makes sense that they wouldn't want to, have that stigma against them, and they wouldn't want to report that. So, some of the things that inappropriate sexual behavior may include, but are definitely not limited to, sexual or romantic invitations, dating or soliciting dates, engaging in sexualized dialogue, especially, internet and texting these days through all kinds of apps, making suggestive comments, both verbally and online, exposure, self-disclosure of sexual or erotic nature. We see, news reports on this all the time, and any exchange of gifts with no educational purpose at all. And if you're guilty, of course, it will include the loss of employment and your certificate being revoked. Now, we talked about the professional, the Alabama Educator Code of Ethics just a few minutes ago, and I gave you some copies of those for you to look over. But, make sure that our Code of Ethics also prohibits both consensual and non-consensual sex between teachers and students, and the policy should also cover all of those things as well. Now, it's sad that the media has kind of taken and categorized sexual predators, educator sexual predators, into 2 specific types of categories. One of them is a groomer, one of them is an opportunist. Now, the groomers are educators that develop a relationship slowly with a student. Normally it's with the younger children, and with that they develop that sense of trust with them before they kind of move in and have a relationship turn inappropriate. A lot of times, the community really loves that type of teacher because they spend a lot of compassion and caring and time with their students, but it is under some false pretenses. Opportunists, those that are the type that kind of prey on the older children, they immediately begin flirting. They start that inappropriate dialogue with students just to feel them out and to see how much, how far they will let them go. So I thought it was really sad that we have 2 types that we can actually categorize. Now, once suspected, many educator predators, of course, leave districts quietly, and we call this passing the trash because there's not a national system for reporting, educator predators, sexual predators. And so there needs to be one in place so that we're not passing these people from one district to another without, making sure that they are either arrested or charged or, investigated in some way. The ESSA Act, the Every Student Succeeds Act, allows for state and local agencies to create these policies to make sure that we have those background checks and those certification validations. And I know that Alabama does some of the same things. We also need to think about social networking with students. Do they have, especially if they're younger, make sure that they have consent to be on social media. Make sure that there's a confidentiality and always a traceability by the school with how you're communicating with your students. Make sure that there are always those boundaries, and definitely if you see any illicit activity, make sure that you report that. We are mandatory reporters. So just a couple of court cases that were pulled out, or news where there was inappropriate behavior between teachers and students. There was a video of a teacher who was playing beer pong with some kids at a graduation party, and of course they were underage, and then inappropriate text messages with a 10th grade student. You guys have heard far worse in some of the Alabama media, and so make sure that we are not immune to that. We need to make sure that we are following the guidelines and making sure that our colleagues are following those guidelines as well. Some districts have guidelines, of course, against students and teachers connecting on social media. I think our school system actually has a policy where they do not want us to befriend any or connect with any of our students. And the reason why is because we want to make sure that those students are secure and safe, and our rights are protected, because we can have those, Facebooks or Instagrams or those types of things, but we want to make sure that we don't put anything out there that could be seen or misconstrued as something illegal or inappropriate. So therefore, that's why we definitely need those guidelines. Now, student safety, of course, is always our main priority. And if you're going to use social media, which we do a lot with communications with our children, with our students, with our instructional use as well. So make sure that the platform is validated or vetted, such as Remind. It's confidential. It has that traceability. There are the parameters there where nobody knows what each other's phone number is. Everything can be traced. So make sure that you use something that is validated or vetted. Social networking with students. Traditionally, we were responsible for our students on the campus while they were here during school hours or during school activities. But now, you guys, it's a little different, and we are, trying our best to maintain that safety and security of our students at all hours, at all times. Especially with us being a one-to-one district, we have, we have given these students these devices, and we have those parameters now. We have to have those filters, and they don't always catch everything, but we have to make sure that we are, even in today's digital world, making sure that our students are safe and secure. And I'm going to quickly end with educator cheating on state assessments. Now, you guys know that you've seen it in the news as well, in the media as well, where we have had teachers that change student answers, who read the test booklets, who give them extended time or help a struggling student or those types of things. Well, all of those things are illegal, and you're actually harming the student when you're doing that. So please make sure that when you do sign those papers, when Ms. Todd, our counselor, makes us sign those papers of confidentiality, and we're following those rules and guidelines, make sure that you take those seriously as well. So educators feel that their school's reputation, of course, there's a lot of pressure for making sure that those test scores, increase, or that, maybe your pay is tied to it, or maybe your job is tied to it. And so, we realize that it is a lot of pressure, but don't let it push or force you into doing something that could be illegal. One of the most publicized, I think, was the Atlanta public school system, when there were over 200 teachers and administrators that were actually investigated for, changing scores on the standardized assessments and those types of things. 11 educators were charged with racketeering. They were found guilty. They were sentenced. And, this is an important thing for us to realize, is that this is illegal. It is doing something dishonest. So, besides the fact that you're harming the student, it's something that, we're violating that trust between, the parents and the guardians and the community and ourselves. So make sure that, that's not something that happens. with us. And we have in the media, they've kind of described it as having 3 different types or 3 different degrees of this cheating that teachers do. And the first degree, of course, is intentional. It's very purposeful. You know what you're doing. You know you're trying to go against and do something illegal. So that's first degree. And second degree, you kind of have a lack of concern over the guidelines, and there's some intent, but it's kind of a negligible intent. And then there's third degree, is that you just don't know the rules, you didn't pay enough attention, or you just don't know the rules, and you're trying to give compassionate assistance to the students, and that's not something we should do either. And that's the end of my PowerPoint. So please make sure that you email me with any questions about these unethical behaviors, or if there's anything that you would like to look at further, I'll be glad to help you with that as well. Thank you.